Washington, D.C., in a stunning political shakeup Tuesday evening, former presidential candidate and conservative commentator Pete Hegseth was abruptly removed from his leadership role within the Trump political network after a significant strategic error was uncovered. Sources close to former President Donald J. Trump confirmed. According to insiders, Trump personally confronted Hegseth after a confidential campaign memo, widely seen as a key blueprint for messaging and voter outreach, was inadvertently leaked to rival factions and national media. The document allegedly contained sensitive internal polling data and strategic directives that contradicted the Trump team's public positions, sparking confusion among key supporters. This isn't just a misstep, one senior Trump advisor told reporters on condition of anonymity. It was a monumental lapse in judgment that compromised our operational security and messaging discipline. The leak triggered immediate backlash across conservative circles, with analysts saying it undercut confidence in the Trump campaign's organizational competence. Within hours of the exposure, Trump called an emergency meeting at his Mar-a-Lago headquarters, where he confronted Hegseth and ultimately relieved him of all decision-making authority. "This nation needs leaders who protect our movement's integrity," Trump was quoted as saying in an official statement released late Tuesday. "I cannot tolerate avoidable errors that jeopardize our goals." Effective immediately, Pete Hegseth is no longer serving in any strategic role. Fallout and reaction. Republican strategists expressed shock at the speed of Hegseth's removal, calling it one of the swiftest high-profile dismissals in recent conservative political history. Media and pundits seized on the controversy, dissecting both the content of the leaked material and Trump's decisive response. Hegseth himself has yet to issue a public statement, though aides report he plans to address supporters in a live stream later this week. Good evening, America, and welcome to a story that's sending shockwaves through the conservative political world. Tonight we bring you an exclusive report on a stunning shakeup inside the Trump network. In a move that has left allies scrambling and pundits talking, former commentator and strategist Pete Hegseth has been abruptly removed from his leadership role following a major leak that exposed critical campaign strategy. Sources tell us the documents contain sensitive internal polling data, messaging directives, and voter outreach plans, information that was never meant to see the light of day. And when the news hit, the fallout was immediate, dramatic, and impossible to ignore. From emergency meetings at Mar-a-Lago to a swift show of decisive action, the story is unfolding with consequences that could reshape the political landscape. This is the full inside account, breaking it down step by step, from the leak to the leadership shakeup, and the ripple effects hitting allies and media alike. Strap in, because what you're about to hear is nothing short of extraordinary. Trump cuts ties with Pete Hegseth after strategic leak shocks GOP circles, in a development that has sent shockwaves through Washington and conservative political circles alike. Former President Donald J. Trump has officially severed ties with Pete Hegseth, the high-profile commentator and former presidential candidate whose recent misstep has rattled even the most seasoned members of the Republican Party. Sources close to Trump confirmed that the decision was made following the accidental release of highly sensitive strategic documents that were meant solely for internal use within the Trump political apparatus. The leaked materials, which contain confidential polling data, tactical messaging plans, and voter outreach strategies, immediately drew intense scrutiny from rival factions and the media, creating an unprecedented crisis within the campaign infrastructure. According to insiders, Trump was informed of the breach almost immediately and reportedly reacted with utter disbelief and frustration, signaling that the error was viewed not merely as a minor lapse, but as a direct threat to the integrity and operational security of his political operations. The leak, which surfaced on multiple social media platforms and was rapidly cited by prominent political analysts, included directives that appeared to contradict public messaging previously endorsed by Trump's advisors. This inconsistency raised immediate questions about the coordination and discipline of the campaign team, and insiders claim that senior advisors feared that the leak could erode confidence among core supporters at a critical time. Eyewitness accounts from the Mar-a-Lago headquarters describe an emergency meeting convened late Tuesday evening, where Trump personally confronted Hegseth. Sources describe a tense exchange in which Trump demanded accountability, emphasizing the importance of loyalty, discretion, and unwavering focus on the party's strategic objectives. Within hours, Hegseth was stripped of all decision-making authority, effectively ending his role as a key strategist within the Trump network. Staffers present at the meeting described the atmosphere as shockingly decisive, noting that Trump made it clear that errors of this magnitude could no longer be tolerated, regardless of prior accomplishments or political influence. Political analysts have weighed in on the implications of Hegseth's removal, highlighting that such a high-profile dismissal is rare in modern GOP politics. Some describe it as a cautionary tale, warning that internal mismanagement, even among the party's most prominent figures, can trigger swift and public consequences. Others suggest that the fallout may extend beyond Hegseth himself, raising concerns about the cohesion of Trump's campaign team, the discipline of messaging strategies, and the ability to respond effectively to media scrutiny in an increasingly volatile political environment. While the full content of the leaked documents has not been disclosed publicly, multiple sources confirm that the breach included not only voter data, but also internal guidance on upcoming debates, fundraising initiatives, and messaging to swing voters in key battleground states. The leak's timing, coinciding with a period of heightened political activity and scrutiny, is widely seen as exacerbating its impact, leaving both Trump and his team scrambling to contain the fallout and reassure supporters that the campaign remains operationally sound and strategically focused. In response to the leak, several senior aides have reportedly launched internal reviews to assess the circumstances surrounding the breach, identifying vulnerabilities and implementing additional safeguards to prevent a recurrence. These measures reflect a broader effort to reinforce discipline and accountability across the organization, signaling that Trump intends to take aggressive steps to ensure that future missteps do not compromise campaign operations or public confidence in the movement. Hegseth's confidential memo sparks political firestorm, prompting immediate ouster. The political landscape was shaken to its core this week as Pete Hegseth, the prominent conservative commentator and former military officer, found himself at the center of a growing controversy that ultimately led to his sudden removal from all leadership roles within the Trump political network. The catalyst for this upheaval was the unintended disclosure of a confidential internal memo that contained highly sensitive strategic directives, including polling insights, campaign priorities, and voter targeting plans designed for exclusive internal circulation. Political insiders have described the memo as explosive, not only for its content but for the timing, as it arrived during a period of heightened scrutiny and intense competition within Republican ranks. Sources close to the situation report that the memo, originally intended for a limited circle of campaign strategists, was inadvertently shared beyond its intended audience, immediately attracting attention from rival factions and national media outlets. Analysts argue that the leak exposed both the intricacies of the campaign strategy and key internal disagreements that had previously been kept behind closed doors, triggering a firestorm of debate over Hegseth's judgment and reliability. Within hours, the controversy became a trending topic across social media platforms, further magnifying the pressure on the Trump team to respond decisively. Eyewitnesses to the internal discussions at Mar-a-Lago describe a tense and urgent environment, as Trump convened a series of high-level meetings to assess the damage and determine appropriate next steps. According to multiple insiders, the former president expressed profound disappointment in Hegseth's actions, framing the leak as a serious breach of trust that undermined both operational security and the credibility of the movement. By evening, the decision was made to remove Hegseth from all strategic and decision-making roles, effectively ending his influence within the network, and signaling a clear message that mistakes of this magnitude would not be tolerated. Political observers have been quick to comment on the broader implications of the memo leak. Many see it as a wake-up call regarding the fragility of internal communications and the need for tighter controls over sensitive campaign information. Some have highlighted that the incident could expose fault lines within the Republican establishment, revealing tensions between traditional strategists, media personalities, and the Trump inner circle. In particular, analysts note that the leak may prompt further scrutiny of decision-making processes and the role of high-profile figures like Hegseth in shaping public messaging, fundraising strategies, and voter engagement efforts. The fallout from the incident has already been felt across multiple fronts. Conservative commentators and political pundits have dissected the contents of the memo, speculating on how the leaked strategies might influence voter perceptions and the broader trajectory of Trump-aligned campaigns. Meanwhile, senior aides have begun implementing immediate procedural changes, including enhanced oversight of sensitive materials and stricter protocols for internal communication, in an effort to prevent similar breaches in the future. Insider sources confirm Trump's swift action against Hegseth over major blunder. Insider sources have confirmed that former President Donald J. Trump acted with unprecedented speed to remove Pete Hegseth from all strategic and leadership positions, following a significant blunder that has rattled the conservative political landscape. The action, taken within hours of a confidential internal document being exposed, underscores the intensity of Trump's demand for loyalty and operational discipline among his closest aides. According to multiple sources familiar with the situation, Trump personally convened a series of high-level meetings at Mar-a-Lago to assess the damage and determine the appropriate response. The misstep in question revolves around the accidental disclosure of a document containing highly sensitive information about polling data, campaign strategy, and messaging priorities that had been intended for a select group of internal strategists. The leak, which rapidly circulated among rival factions and media outlets, raised immediate concerns about both the security of campaign operations and the clarity of Trump's broader political messaging. Several insiders described the document as potentially explosive, noting that it revealed key strategic intentions and internal calculations that could compromise the campaign's effectiveness if left unaddressed. Eyewitness accounts from Mar-a-Lago describe an atmosphere of urgency and intensity as Trump demanded explanations from Hegseth and his aides. Sources report that Trump expressed strong dissatisfaction with the breach, emphasizing the critical importance of safeguarding sensitive materials and maintaining consistency in public messaging. Within hours, Hegseth was stripped of all decision-making authority, signaling a firm and unmistakable warning to other advisors that errors of this magnitude would not be tolerated. Political observers note that the speed of Trump's response is unprecedented, reflecting a no-nonsense approach to accountability within the campaign. Several analysts have suggested that this decisive action may serve as a signal to both allies and rivals that the Trump network remains tightly controlled and focused on operational discipline, despite recent controversies. At the same time, questions remain about how this abrupt change will impact morale among staffers and strategic planning across battleground states. Senior aides have reportedly initiated a full review of internal communication protocols in the wake of the leak, aiming to identify vulnerabilities and strengthen safeguards to prevent future breaches. Some insiders have indicated that additional personnel changes may follow, as the leadership seeks to ensure both loyalty and competence across key operational roles. Meanwhile, the media and political commentators continue to dissect the situation, speculating on the content of the leaked document and the broader implications of Hegseth's removal for Trump's political influence and campaign trajectory. Conservative movement reels as Hegseth removed from leadership role. The conservative political landscape has been thrown into turmoil following the abrupt removal of Pete Hegseth from his leadership role within the Trump network, a decision that insiders describe as both swift and decisive. The shakeup came after the disclosure of a sensitive internal memo containing strategic campaign data, voter targeting plans, and messaging directives intended exclusively for select advisors. The leak, which quickly circulated among political opponents and media outlets, has prompted concern over operational discipline and loyalty within the movement, leaving many allies questioning how such a high-profile misstep could occur. According to sources familiar with the decision, Hegseth's removal was a direct result of the breach, which exposed internal strategies that could compromise the network's effectiveness and consistency in public messaging. Senior officials report that Trump convened emergency discussions to evaluate the implications of the leak, ultimately deciding that the breach represented a serious lapse in judgment that could not go unaddressed. The decision was reportedly communicated to Hegseth late in the evening, effectively ending his influence over campaign operations and strategic decision-making. Political analysts suggest that the removal of Hegseth may have ripple effects throughout conservative circles, highlighting vulnerabilities in the internal cohesion of the Trump network. Observers note that high-profile figures like Hegseth wield significant influence over messaging, fundraising, and voter outreach, meaning that their sudden departure can create both logistical and strategic challenges. The incident also underscores the importance of operational security and the risks associated with internal communication breaches, especially as the movement navigates an increasingly competitive political environment. Inside Mar-a-Lago, sources describe a tense atmosphere as Trump demanded accountability and reaffirmed his commitment to maintaining strict discipline among his advisors. Staffers report that the former president emphasized the need for loyalty, discretion, and adherence to established protocols, framing Hegseth's removal as a necessary measure to safeguard the integrity of the movement. Multiple insiders note that the decision was made quickly to minimize confusion and to signal that leadership errors of this magnitude will be met with immediate consequences. The memo leak has also sparked broader debate among conservative strategists and pundits, who are analyzing both its content and the implications of Hegseth's departure for the movement's long-term objectives. Many observers are watching closely to see how the network recalibrates its messaging and whether new leadership appointments will follow to stabilize operations. Some analysts argue that while the removal of Hegseth is a blow to the movement, it also presents an opportunity to reinforce discipline and demonstrate the network's resilience in the face of internal disruptions. High-level GOP chaos. Hegseth's misstep exposes internal divisions. The Republican Party is facing a wave of internal turbulence following the controversial removal of Pete Hegseth from a leadership role within the Trump political network, a decision triggered by the leak of sensitive campaign documents. Sources close to the situation reveal that the exposure of polling data, voter targeting strategies, and messaging plans not only embarrassed the party publicly, but also laid bare long-standing internal divisions among senior strategists and media advisors. Several insiders report that the incident has reignited disputes over messaging priorities, voter outreach tactics, and the relative influence of high-profile commentators within the GOP infrastructure. Political analysts argue that Hegseth's misstep has amplified latent tensions between traditional strategists and media-centric advisors, raising questions about decision-making authority and operational cohesion. Staffers recount tense conversations at Mar-a-Lago, where Trump demanded immediate accountability, while simultaneously navigating the complex web of loyalties and rivalries that underpin the movement. Observers note that the leak's timing, coinciding with a critical phase of voter engagement and campaign messaging, has intensified the pressure on leadership to restore order and maintain a united front. In addition to public scrutiny, the memo leak has prompted internal debates about communication protocols, risk management, and the proper vetting of sensitive information. Some GOP strategists warn that unless corrective measures are implemented swiftly, similar breaches could further destabilize the party's operational effectiveness and erode confidence among key supporters. The fallout is ongoing, with senior aides reportedly reviewing both personnel assignments and procedural safeguards to prevent comparable incidents in the future. Trump declares zero tolerance following Hegseth's security breach. Following the exposure of confidential campaign documents, former President Donald J. Trump issued a decisive warning signaling zero tolerance for breaches of operational security, underscoring the seriousness of Pete Hegseth's misstep. Sources close to the former president confirm that the leaked material included sensitive voter data and strategic plans, creating a high-stakes situation that demanded immediate action. Trump reportedly expressed deep frustration over the incident, emphasizing that loyalty, discretion, and strict adherence to internal protocols are non-negotiable for anyone involved in the campaign. Eyewitnesses describe a tense series of emergency meetings at Mar-a-Lago, where Trump personally confronted Hegseth and other key aides, demanding accountability and a thorough review of security procedures. The former president's advisors described the tone as firm and uncompromising, reflecting a broader effort to reinforce discipline and prevent future lapses. Hegseth was swiftly relieved of his decision-making responsibilities, a move insiders say was intended to both contain the immediate fallout and set a precedent for operational accountability. Political commentators have noted that Trump's zero-tolerance stance may serve as both a warning to insiders and a signal to supporters that the campaign remains tightly managed despite recent controversies. Senior aides have reportedly begun implementing stricter oversight measures, focusing on the handling of sensitive communications, documentation, and strategic planning to avoid repetition of the breach. Analysts suggest that while the incident exposed vulnerabilities, the swift action reinforces the message that internal mismanagement will be met with immediate and decisive consequences, reshaping perceptions of leadership within the movement. Media scrambles over leaked strategy document, raising questions on Hegseth's judgment. The leak of Pete Hegseth's internal strategy memo triggered a media frenzy, with news outlets dissecting confidential polling, messaging plans, and voter targeting strategies. Analysts question Hegseth's judgment, highlighting how the exposure undermined campaign cohesion and fueled partisan speculation. Political insiders confirm the document revealed inconsistencies in messaging and operational priorities, intensifying scrutiny over leadership decisions and prompting urgent internal reviews to prevent further security lapses. Rapid fallout. Allies distanced themselves from Hegseth after Trump's decision. Following Pete Hegseth's removal by Trump, key allies and conservative commentators swiftly distanced themselves, signaling concern over association with the leaked strategy memo. Sources report senior aides are re-evaluating partnerships, while advisors emphasize operational caution. The move exposed cracks in the network's internal loyalty, sparking debates over accountability, competence, and leadership reliability, as observers note that reputational risk has become a driving factor in shaping strategic alliances. Political analysts warn Hegseth's exit could shift campaign messaging significantly. Analysts warn Pete Hegseth's abrupt exit may reshape Trump's campaign messaging, disrupting voter outreach and strategic alignment. Sources indicate internal teams are recalibrating communications while assessing the fallout, highlighting the risk of inconsistent messaging and potential influence on battleground states as leadership adapts to the sudden organizational change. Hegseth silent amid controversy. Trump moves to reassert control over party strategy. Pete Hegseth remains silent as the memo leak fuels controversy, while Trump moves swiftly to consolidate control over campaign strategy. Insiders report renewed emphasis on discipline and centralized decision-making, with senior aides implementing stricter oversight to prevent future errors and reassure supporters that operational command remains firmly in Trump's hands. As we've seen tonight, the removal of Pete Hegseth wasn't just a personnel decision, it was a seismic event inside the Trump political network. From the leaked confidential memo to the scramble among allies, The internal chaos revealed cracks in strategy, loyalty, and messaging discipline. Analysts warn that the shift could alter campaign tactics and voter outreach, while Trump's zero-tolerance response underscores the high stakes of operational security. Every step of this saga, from Hegseth's misstep to the rapid fallout and strategic recalibration, paints a picture of a movement on edge, reasserting control and sending a clear message that accountability in high-profile roles is non-negotiable. Tonight, we've covered the full story, the leak, the confrontation, the internal debates, the media frenzy, and the recalibration of power.